3 months ago, I watched my parents swing a baseball bat through a complete stranger's living room, thinking they were destroying my life. Turns out, they were handing me the greatest gift I never knew I needed, freedom from the people who were supposed to love me most. I'm Vivian, and I need to tell you about the day I discovered that sometimes the most toxic people in your life share your DNA. It all started with $120,000 and a family dinner that would change everything forever. But to understand why that money almost destroyed my life, I need to take you back 5 years, to when I still believed that blood meant loyalty and love was supposed to be unconditional. I was 28 then, living in a studio apartment that was basically a glorified closet. Every single day for 4 years, I'd wake up in that cramped space and remind myself why I was doing this. Why I was eating canned beans for dinner. Why I was taking the bus instead of owning a car. Why I was buying clothes from thrift stores and celebrating birthdays with gas station cupcakes. $120,000. That's what freedom looked like to me, enough money to buy a house, to finally have a space that was truly mine. Every dollar represented a choice, a sacrifice, a dream deferred but not abandoned. Late nights debugging code until my eyes burned. Weekend freelance projects while my friends were out living their lives. It was all worth it because I had found her, the perfect 3-bedroom craftsman with hardwood floors and a kitchen that caught the morning light like liquid gold. Every Saturday, I'd drive to my parents' house for our weekly family tradition. Mom would make her famous meatloaf, Dad would complain about his back while secretly loving having both his daughters around the table, and Melissa, my older sister by 3 years, would show up with Andrew, her husband who always seemed to be chasing the next get-rich-quick scheme that would make him wealthy without actually working. That particular Saturday in October felt different from the moment I walked in. There was this electricity in the air, this sense that something big was about to happen. Melissa and Andrew were whispering in the corner like conspirators. Mom kept shooting me these strange looks, part excitement, part calculation. Dad couldn't quite meet my eyes during his usual complaints about the neighbor's dog. I was too caught up in my own excitement to pay attention to the warning signs. I had pictures of the house on my phone, ready to share my joy with the people who were supposed to celebrate my success. Melissa has some wonderful news, Mom announced as we settled around the dining room table, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she was about to ask for a favor. What happened next still makes my stomach drop when I think about it. Melissa didn't just tell us about her new business venture, she gave us a full presentation. Printed charts, graphs, projected revenue streams, market analysis. This was her 3rd attempt at entrepreneurship, and apparently, she'd learned nothing from the first 2 spectacular failures that had forced my parents to remortgage their house to pay off her debts. I've learned from my mistakes, she said, her eyes bright with that dangerous combination of desperation and delusion that I'd seen too many times before. This time, I have everything figured out. I just need capital for initial development and marketing. Andrew nodded beside her like the perfect supportive husband, playing his role to perfection. The projections show we could double our investment within 2 years. That's when they all turned to look at me. Not casual glances, deliberate, expectant stares that made something cold settle in my chest. "Why are you all looking at me like that?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Melissa's voice took on that sweet, manipulative tone she'd been perfecting since we were kids. "Well, I know you're saving for a house, and Mom mentioned you have about $120,000 saved up." The room went silent except for the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. They had discussed my finances. They had calculated exactly how much I was worth to them. I wasn't their daughter, their sister, I was a walking ATM with a convenient family connection. "I'm not investing my house money in your business, Melissa." The words came out sharper than I intended, but honestly, I was shocked by the audacity. This wasn't a small favor between siblings. This was my entire future they were asking me to gamble on Melissa's track record of spectacular business failures. Melissa's face crumpled like I'd physically struck her. "But if you help me now, in 2 years I'll give you back $240,000. You could buy an even better house then." I actually laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all. The woman who'd failed at business twice asking me to trust her with my life savings based on nothing but optimism and pie-in-the-sky projections. "Melissa, you've already failed at business twice." Maybe it's time to stop with these schemes and get a regular job like the rest of us. That's when everything exploded. Melissa burst into tears and ran from the room like we were still teenagers having a dramatic fight. Andrew called me heartless and followed her. And my parents, the people who had raised me, who had supposedly loved me unconditionally for 28 years, immediately turned on me like I was the villain in this story. How could you be so cruel to your sister? Mom's voice was ice cold, cutting through me like a blade. Melissa is more talented than you'll ever be. You're just jealous of her success. Success? I wanted to scream. What success? The 2 bankruptcies? The creditors calling their house at all hours? The stress that had given Dad panic attacks and sent him to the emergency room? But Dad delivered the killing blow. You give Melissa that money, or you're no longer part of this family. I stared at these people, these strangers wearing my parents' faces, and realized that to them, I had never been a daughter. I was a bank account with a heartbeat, a resource to be tapped when needed. I'm not giving her my money, I said quietly. Then get out of our house and don't come back. So I did. I walked out of that house, drove home to my cramped apartment, and changed my phone number the next day. If they wanted to cut me out of the family over money, I'd make it official. 1 year later, I bought that house. The same beautiful craftsman with hardwood floors and morning sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows. I set up my home office in the spare bedroom and discovered what peace actually felt like. No more Saturday dinners walking on eggshells. No more listening to Melissa's latest delusional business plans. No more being treated like a human ATM by the people who were supposed to love me. Through mutual friends, I heard that Melissa's business was actually successful this time. She bought a big house, was traveling constantly with Andrew, posting pictures of their lavish lifestyle all over social media. I was genuinely happy for her, but I felt zero regret about protecting my financial future. For 5 years, I lived without them. 5 peaceful, drama-free years where I advanced in my career, learned to enjoy my own company, and slowly built a life that felt authentically mine. I even met someone, Sebastian, this incredible man I connected with through a professional networking group. He lived in another state, but we made the long-distance relationship work because he was everything my family had never been: kind, stable, supportive, someone who valued me for who I was, not what I could provide. Sebastian would visit me, I'd visit him, and we started talking seriously about a future together. I was actually considering selling my house to move to his state and start fresh somewhere new with someone who genuinely cared about my happiness. Then, on a Tuesday morning that started like any other, I got an email that changed everything. It came to my old email address, the one I barely checked anymore. The sender's name made my stomach drop: Mom. Vivian, we need to see you urgently. This is a matter of life and death. Please come home. Despite everything, these people had raised me. If someone was dying, if Dad was having a heart attack or Mom had cancer, I needed to know. So I wrote back, short and direct, I'll come by this Saturday. Saturday morning, I sat in my car outside their house for 10 minutes, trying to gather courage. The neighborhood looked smaller than I remembered, shabbier somehow. But what really caught my attention were the 2 cars in the driveway, Melissa's brand new Porsche and Andrew's pristine Mercedes, both expensive as hell. So this wasn't just about my parents. This was a family intervention. Mom opened the door looking older, more tired, with new lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 5 years ago. Vivian, she said, her voice shaky with emotion. Thank you for coming. The whole family was assembled in the living room like some twisted reunion special. Dad in his usual chair looking grim, Melissa on the couch next to Andrew, her eyes red from crying. They all looked genuinely happy to see me, but also terrified. What's going on? I asked, staying standing because I didn't want to get comfortable. Your email said this was life and death. Mom immediately started tearing up. It's about Melissa. She's in serious trouble. I looked at my sister, who couldn't even meet my eyes. Andrew was holding her hand like she might float away if he let go. What kind of trouble? Dad cleared his throat. Her business went under 3 months ago. The bank took her house. She owes money to some very dangerous people. I felt that familiar mixture of vindication and genuine sadness. Vindication because I'd been right about her business prospects all along. Sadness because losing your home genuinely sucks, even when it's the predictable result of your own terrible decisions. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. But what does this have to do with me? Melissa finally spoke up, her voice barely a whisper. $150,000. Who do you owe $150,000 to? Andrew answered, private investors. They're not the kind of people who accept "I'll pay you later" as an answer. Melissa started crying again. They've been calling, making threats. They know where we're staying now. They know our routines. We're scared, Vivian. Really scared. I felt bad for them, I really did. But I still didn't understand why I was sitting in this living room. That's terrible, but I still don't see what you want from me. Mom dropped the bomb. We know you bought a house. A nice one. We think you should sell it and help Melissa pay off these debts. I stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Are you out of your goddamn mind? You're young, Mom continued, as if I hadn't spoken. You can earn another house. Melissa and Andrew could be seriously hurt if they don't pay this money back. I looked around the room at all of them, these people who had abandoned me for 5 years, who had told me I wasn't family anymore, who had never once called to check if I was alive or dead. So let me get this straight, I said slowly, my voice getting colder with each word. You kicked me out of the family 5 years ago because I wouldn't give Melissa money for her business. Now that business has failed spectacularly, she's in debt to dangerous people, and you want me to sell my house to bail her out? Family helps family, Dad said with a straight face. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You told me I wasn't family anymore. Remember? You cut me off completely. Melissa was sobbing harder now. I know we messed up before, but this is different. These people aren't going to just take us to court. They're going to hurt us. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you borrowed money from loan sharks. Andrew got angry. You have no idea what kind of pressure we're under. You're right, I don't. But I noticed 2 very expensive cars in the driveway. Maybe start by selling those and paying off some of the debt. We need those cars for work, Melissa snapped. You need them more than you need to be safe from dangerous creditors? The circular logic was making my head spin. They were asking me to destroy my financial security to fix problems they had created, while refusing to make any sacrifices themselves. Mom got right in my face. This house you bought, if you sold it, you could pay off Melissa's debts and still have money left over for a nice apartment. A nice apartment? I was getting really angry now. Mom, I worked my ass off for that house. I saved every penny for years. I lived like a monk so I could afford it. I'm not selling it to fix Melissa's mess. She's your sister, Dad said. She's also a grown woman who made her own choices. Bad choices, apparently. Melissa jumped up from the couch. You're supposed to help me. You're supposed to care about what happens to me. Where was this family loyalty 5 years ago when you all told me to get lost? That was different, Mom said. How was it different? You didn't want to help me keep my money then, and I don't want to help you with your money problems now. The room went quiet. Everyone was staring at me like I was the unreasonable one, like I was the villain in their twisted family drama. I'm not doing this, I said finally. Melissa got herself into this mess, and she can get herself out. If you want to help her so badly, sell your house and give her the money. Mom gasped like I'd slapped her. This is the only house we have. We're old, Vivian. We can't just start over like you can. Then I guess you understand exactly how I feel about my house. I started walking toward the door. Melissa called after me, you're making a huge mistake. These people don't mess around. I turned back to look at her. Neither do I. I left them all sitting there and drove home feeling lighter than I had in years. As soon as I got back to my house, I blocked Mom's email address. I was done with their drama forever. For about a week, things were peaceful. Sebastian called every day, supportive and understanding as always. You did the right thing, he kept saying. They can't just show up after 5 years and demand you fix their problems. I was actually feeling pretty good about my decision. Sure, I felt bad that Melissa was in trouble, but that wasn't my fault or my responsibility. I had my own life to worry about. Then Tuesday morning happened, and everything changed in ways I never could have predicted. I was in my kitchen making coffee, looking forward to a productive workday, when I heard a car door slam outside. I looked out the window and nearly dropped my mug. Mom and Dad were walking up my driveway like they owned the place. "What are you doing here?" I asked when I opened the door. "How did you even get my address?" Mom looked proud of herself. "Melissa hired a private investigator." "A private investigator? Are you serious right now?" Dad was looking around at my house with calculating eyes, and I could practically see the dollar sign spinning in his head. "This is a nice place," he said. "Get off my property." But Mom pushed past me and walked right into my house like she had every right to be there. Dad followed her. I was so shocked by their audacity that I just stood there for a second. "Don't make yourselves comfortable," I said. "You're not staying." Mom was walking around my living room, touching things, examining everything like she was conducting a real estate appraisal. "If you sold this house, you could easily pay off Melissa's debt and still have plenty left over for a smaller place. Maybe a nice apartment. I already told you I'm not selling my house." "But look at all the space," Dad said, spreading his arms out. "It's just you living here. You don't need all this room. What I need is none of your business." Mom turned to me with tears in her eyes again. "Melissa is really scared, Vivian. These men called her yesterday. They know where she and Andrew are staying now. They said if they don't get their money by the end of the month, something bad is going to happen. Then maybe Melissa should go to the police." "The police can't help with this," Dad said. "These aren't the kind of people who care about restraining orders." I was getting more frustrated by the second. "That's still not my problem. You both need to leave now." "We're not leaving until you agree to help your sister," Mom said, crossing her arms like a stubborn child. "Then I'm calling the police." I pulled out my phone and started dialing. Dad grabbed my arm. "Don't be ridiculous. Let go of me." I shook him off. "I'm calling them right now if you don't get out of my house." They could tell I was serious. Mom started crying harder. "Fine, but this isn't over, Vivian. If something happens to Melissa, it's on your head. And if something happens to my financial security because I bail out her bad decisions, that would be on my head too. At least this way, only the person who made the mess deals with the consequences." Dad pointed his finger at me. "You're going to regret this. Family is supposed to stick together. You didn't think that 5 years ago." After they finally left, I called the realtor I'd been talking to about maybe selling my house to move in with Sebastian. "Hey, it's Vivian. Remember we talked about putting my house on the market? I need to sell it as fast as possible. I'm willing to take a 5% discount if that helps move things along." "Well, that's interesting timing. I actually have a buyer who's been looking in your area. With that kind of discount, I think he'd be very interested." 3 days later, he called me back with an offer. It was lower than I'd hoped, but fair considering the quick sale. I accepted immediately. Sebastian was confused when I told him. "Why the rush?" I explained about my parents showing up at my house uninvited, their threats, their refusal to leave when asked. "I don't trust them, Sebastian. I think they're going to keep harassing me, maybe even do something crazy. I'd rather sell the house and get the money somewhere safe where they can't see it or use it as leverage against me." "That's probably smart. And hey, this means you can come stay with me sooner than we planned." That made me smile for the first time in days. "Are you okay with me staying at your place while I look for a new house in your area?" "Are you kidding? I've been hoping you'd move here. This just speeds up our timeline." The closing happened fast. Within a week, all the paperwork was done and the house was officially sold. Sebastian drove out to help me pack everything up and move it to his place. It felt good to have him there, to not be dealing with this stress alone. As we were loading the last of my boxes into the moving truck, I looked back at the house one more time. I'd been genuinely happy there. I'd worked incredibly hard to afford it. But I felt good about my decision to sell. I was starting a new chapter with Sebastian, and my family couldn't use my house as emotional blackmail anymore. "You okay?" Sebastian asked, putting his arm around me. "Yeah, I'm good. Let's get out of here." We drove off together, and I felt this huge weight lift off my shoulders. Whatever happened with Melissa and her debt problems, it wasn't going to involve me or my money. I was finally free of their drama for good. Living with Sebastian turned out to be incredible. His place was comfortable and welcoming, and working remotely meant I could settle into a routine pretty quickly. We spent our evenings looking at houses online, planning our future together. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy and completely stress-free. I'd been living with Sebastian for about a month when my phone rang one Tuesday morning. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but it had my old hometown area code. "Is this Vivian Smith?" "Yes." "Who's calling?" "This is Officer Hughes with the Lincoln Police Department. I'm calling about an incident involving your parents, Wade and Susan Smith." My blood went cold. What kind of incident? They were arrested last night for breaking and entering and destruction of property. The homeowner wants to press charges. I was completely confused. Breaking and entering where? The address they broke into is listed as your former residence. Is 847 Maple Street a house you used to own? I sold that house a month ago. What were my parents doing there? That's what we're trying to figure out. They caused significant damage to the interior of the home. Destroyed furniture, broke windows, spray-painted obscenities on the walls. The new owner came home to find them in his living room, smashing his coffee table with a baseball bat. I sat down hard on Sebastian's couch, my legs suddenly unable to support me. "Are you serious?" "Very serious. The damage is estimated at around $40,000. Your parents claimed they thought it was still your house and that you'd wronged them somehow. They said they were getting back at you for abandoning your family." I told Officer Hughes everything, about Melissa's debts, about them showing up at my house uninvited, about the whole 5-year family drama that had led to this moment. He listened patiently and took detailed notes. "So they didn't know you'd sold the house?" "Obviously not. They probably went there to vandalize my property as revenge for not giving Melissa money. Instead, they destroyed some innocent person's home." "That's exactly what it looks like. The problem is, they destroyed someone else's property instead of yours." After I hung up, I told Sebastian what had happened. He was as shocked as I was. "That's insane, Vivian. They could have been shot. What if the homeowner had been armed and thought they were dangerous intruders?" I hadn't even thought of that. My parents could have been killed over this stupid vendetta, this pathetic attempt at revenge. Over the next few weeks, I got regular updates from the police and from mutual friends back home about what was happening with my parents' case. The legal proceedings were moving forward, and the reality of their situation was becoming clear. Mom and Dad were facing serious criminal charges, but their lawyer managed to work out a plea deal. They admitted guilt in exchange for avoiding jail time, but they had to pay full restitution to the homeowner they'd terrorized. $40,000 for property damage, plus legal fees, plus court costs. It ended up being close to $60,000 total. My friend Catherine called me with the complete story a few weeks later. "Vivian, your parents had to sell their house. They couldn't afford the restitution any other way." The irony was absolutely staggering. They had sold the house they claimed was their only asset, the one they said they were too old to replace. "And here's the kicker," Catherine continued. "After paying everything they owed to the court and the homeowner, they gave the remaining money to Melissa for her debt problems. So they had ended up doing exactly what they demanded I do, but with their own house instead of mine." "That's not even the best part," Catherine said. "Melissa's creditor problems? Turns out they weren't as scary as she made them sound. The dangerous people were just a legitimate investment firm that was threatening to sue her. No broken kneecaps, no mysterious accidents, just regular legal action. So Melissa had lied about being in physical danger. She had manipulated everyone, including our parents, into thinking her life was at risk when really she was just facing a completely normal lawsuit." "Where are Mom and Dad living now?" I asked. They're renting a small apartment with Melissa and Andrew. All four of them crammed into a 2-bedroom place. From what I hear, it's not going well. Lots of fighting, lots of tension. A few months passed, and I heard through the grapevine that my family was trying to contact me through mutual friends. They wanted to apologize, to explain themselves, to somehow rebuild our relationship. Every time someone brought it up, I said no. Catherine called me one more time about it. Your mom asked me to tell you she's sorry. She said they realized they handled everything wrong, that they made terrible mistakes. It's too late for sorry, I told her. They spent 5 years not caring whether I was alive or dead. Then they demanded I bankrupt myself for Melissa's mistakes. Then they committed actual crimes because I wouldn't do what they wanted. I'm done. But their family, Vivian. No, they're not. Family doesn't abandon you for 5 years and then show up demanding money. Family doesn't hire private investigators to stalk you. Family doesn't break into houses with baseball bats because they don't get their way. Sebastian had been listening to my side of the conversation. When I hung up, he took my hand and squeezed it gently. You okay? I'm perfect, actually. And I was. We'd found a house we both loved and were preparing to make an offer. I was doing incredibly well at work and had even gotten a significant promotion. Most importantly, I didn't have to deal with their endless drama anymore. He smiled at me with that look that still made my heart skip. Speaking of the house we love, I was thinking about making an offer that's bigger than just on the house. He got down on one knee right there in his living room and pulled out a ring box that took my breath away. Vivian, will you marry me? We can buy that house together and start our real life, the one we've been dreaming about. I started crying happy tears for the first time in what felt like forever. Yes, absolutely yes. We got engaged that day and put an offer on the house that weekend. Our offer was accepted immediately, and we're planning to get married next year in the backyard of our new home. Sometimes I think about my family and wonder if I made the right choice cutting them off completely. Those moments of doubt usually last about 30 seconds, and then I remember how peaceful my life has been without their constant manipulation and emotional terrorism. Melissa created her own problems through a series of terrible business decisions and an inability to learn from her mistakes. Mom and Dad chose to enable her destructive behavior instead of letting her face the natural consequences of her actions. They all chose to harass and threaten me instead of dealing with their own issues like adults. And when I refused to be manipulated, they chose to commit actual crimes. I chose to build a life with someone who loves and supports me unconditionally. I chose to protect my financial security and my mental health. I chose to surround myself with people who don't try to manipulate me or treat me like a walking ATM. I think I chose much, much better. Sebastian and I are deep into planning our wedding, talking about maybe having kids someday, dreaming about the garden we want to plant next spring. My career is thriving in ways I never imagined, and I wake up every single day feeling genuinely happy and at peace. Really, truly content with the life I've built. And none of that would have been possible if I'd let my family drag me back into their mess, if I'd sacrificed my future for their dysfunction. So no, I don't regret cutting them off. Not for a single second. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are actually the ones who place the most impossible conditions on that love. And sometimes walking away from toxic family members is the most loving thing you can do, for yourself and for your future. The hardest boundaries we set are often the ones that finally set us free. And freedom, I've learned, is worth every sacrifice it takes to achieve it. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others who might need to hear it, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about choosing yourself when nobody else will. Sometimes the family you create is so much better than the one you were born into.